Mic's on?
Yep.
All right, so we're going to call the Select Board meeting of Tuesday, January 14th to order. And the first item is approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, I should have asked, are there any changes first? Are there any amendments to the agenda? Okay, well, I guess we voted it. Next, we have two sets of minutes we need to approve. The first is the minutes of the December 17th, 2019 board meeting.
Moved.
Second?
Moved and seconded. Any recommendations for changes to those draft minutes?
No, they were amazingly complete again.
Lindsay's looking like maybe she's trying to find where she saw something.
Line 140, I think Heather was saying
Okay, I'll put you on the speaker.
she doesn't think it's a reason not to support the project, not problem. So just
Right.
changing one word.
Okay. Any other changes? Hearing none, all in favor of supporting or of approving the minutes with the one amendment? Signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Okay, the next is minutes for our December 30th, 2019 special select board meeting.
Moved.
Second?
Moved and seconded. Are there any amendments to those minutes?
No.
I like reading those. The 2 pages.
Yeah, very quick. It was we thought we were done for the decade on the 17th, but we just had to do one for Old Lang Syne. All in favor of approving those, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Oh, hey, Nick. Welcome to the, I'm good. So you're on the cell phone?
Yep.
Okay. And you can hear us okay? Okay. I hear you. It's a little bit like Horton Hears a Who. Okay, next is citizen comments. Is there anyone here for something that is not on the agenda? Seeing none. The next is appointment of the town representative to our Addison County Economic Development Corporation Board. Kathleen pointed out on her December 10th town manager report that Jeff Olson, who's our current representative to the Addison County Economic Development Corporation Board, has expressed an interest in continuing in this role for 2020. We did do our required advertisement for candidates, and there were no other responses. And so, and Jeff being willing, and Jeff's here, if you'd come forward, Jeff, be great. Yes, please.
So, I had a really productive year, I thought, on the board, and enjoyed it, and just barely have gotten my feet wet, so I'd like to do it for another year, to be more effective.
Well, I'm glad you're willing, and I would
Yeah.
move to appoint you as our representative to the Economic Development Board.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Are there any questions of Jeff?
Questions?
Hearing none. All in favor of appointing Jeff for another term on the ACEDC board, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Aye. Oh, there's a little lag time. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jeff.
Appreciate it.
It's been a while since you've dialed in, Nick, and I gotta get used to that. Next is. Yeah. Next is approval of the annual proclamation of the first Friday in May as Arbor Day. And the tree committee is requesting that they sign the annual proclamation celebrating May 1st as Arbor Day. Any questions of the board? Pleasure of the board?
I move to sign the proclamation recognizing May 1st as Arbor Day.
Second.
And seconded, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Aye. Okay.
Here it comes.
So as soon as I sign that, we get started on our public hearing, which is what most everyone's here for, I believe. Public hearing.
While we're waiting, I should mention that we have a very wonderful and active tree committee, which has helped us develop a policy around our trees and continues to highlight that. And I don't know if you've noticed our signage, that we're a Tree City, USA recognized town because of our attention to our public trees, and all of our trees, recognizing the important role that they play in our community. So go Middlebury.
Shout out. Okay, tonight's hearing is an opportunity for the Select Board to take public testimony on the proposed FY21 general fund budget and prepare any final questions or requests for revisions prior to the board's January 28th meeting, when the budget will be finalized for presentation to the voters in March. In accordance with 24 VSA Section 127-1302, the board is conducting a public hearing to take questions and comments from the Middlebury community regarding the proposed FY21 general fund budget. I'll turn the floor over to the town manager, Kathleen Ramsey, shortly, who will lead off the discussion with an update on revisions to the draft budget that have been made since the board's last meeting on December 17th. Because this is an official public hearing, if members of the public have a question or comment after being recognized by myself, please come up to the microphone, state your first and last name for the record, and then direct your feedback to the Select Board so that we can accurately capture it for the minutes for this meeting, and those watching on MCTV can hear you clearly. With that, I'll turn the the mic over to Kathleen and open the public hearing.
So at the last Select Board meeting, the Select Board saw a budget proposal which required about $7.5 million in tax revenue on a budget of $11.5 million. The primary increases, as always, were in wages, benefits, a boost to equipment fund funding, which is part of a 5-year plan to increase funding for the equipment fund so that we would have to borrow less over time. Also increased significantly was the town's ongoing commitment to capital improvement funding, which would be all of those increases are going to be offset by increased revenue from interest revenue. Some state and federal funding is slightly increased, as well as a plan to increase funding from the Cross Street Bridge Reserve. Overall, we would be looking at, with the budget as proposed currently, a 1.38 cent increase in the tax rate, or 1.7%. After the budget presentations tonight, there have been several proposals to shave a little bit off that, so that we'd be looking at closer to a 1 cent increase on the tax rate. And that's all I have. I
Okay.
do have copies of the budget for anybody that's interested here.
Victoria, what questions have you got?
I was looking at your capital improvements planning, and I was just wondering what the police department adaptive reuse bond, what is adaptive reuse? What is that for?
Do you want me to talk about it? So there is a plan to finish decommissioning the old wastewater treatment plant, and in the process, refurbish and reuse the buildings. The old sand filter building would become cruiser parking, and the old control building. Too many buildings, not sure I remember them all.
That's all right.
Control
Just-
building would be redone for additional storage. the emergency vehicle parking. We're also decommissioning parts of the old building that we don't, that didn't get finished decommissioning as part of the process.
Okay.
So we're trying to rehab and reuse what we have. So,
Okay.
does that make sense?
I did talk with Kathleen earlier last week, and,
Could you speak louder?
sorry, said, for the reuse, an $800,000 bond and a $500,000 bond from resiliency, and there was some possibility of using the Cross Street Bridge Fund for that as well, instead of bonding it. Is that a
That's part
possibility
of
still?
the possibility we'll be talking about after the budget public
Oh,
hearing.
good. Well, I'm all for using what extra money we have instead of bonding. Because I learned from Kathleen that $1 million bond over 20 years costs us $286,000 in interest. And I'm like, really? So, you know, when I see bond coming down the road, especially for the Public Works $3 million bond, you know, it's just so much extra money. We don't, you know, if we have other ways to plan ahead and use our resources wisely, I know I'm a broken record, but, but I'm thrilled with what you're planning to, you know, for this coming year for the train station. And, I was wondering, downtown improvements, just generally, what does that include?
So we're sidewalk repairs, some minor bridge-related repairs that are outside of the scope of the downtown bridge project are what's included. So I think maybe Jim can correct me, I think the scope of work ends just maybe beyond the intersection of Merchants Row and Main Street, and we're going to continue those sidewalk repairs and stuff down beyond the bridge, I think, to Bakery Lane.
And the Lazarus Park, is that part of it, or is that, how is
That's
that being funded?
That's part of the
part of
bridge
it.
project.
Okay.
So it's just doing some things to extend the newness of the downtown a little further than the limits of the project.
Okay. Yeah, otherwise, I mean, yeah, other wages and benefits seem to be the big thing in this year's budget, and I was wondering, the big increase in workers' compensation for this coming year, are these things that are there measures we could take to prevent some of the things that are happening to cause the workman's comp?
Kathleen will have to answer that one.
The major drivers on that were some automobile accidents with injuries resulting, which drove up our experience mod, which is the premium calculator for
Right.
workers' compensation.
Right, so it's not something we're doing wrong, or
It's just the incidents that happen.
stuff happens, okay. So, well, I guess that's pretty much what I'm just, yeah, the more we can not bond, the better. Thank you.
Thank you, Victoria. Is there anybody else here on that? Yes. It absolutely is. Please come forward. Yes.
Oh, on behalf of Malt?
But this is about the open format about the budget. Okay. You missed the open.
We're about a part of the budget, so I'm just not sure at what point.
Right, yes, we have you slated for later. It's okay. How would you know? Right, because we're talking.
There's no one else that's here with, about the budget. Wow. Victoria, thank you for at least challenging us a little bit.
Yeah.
So there being no further comment regarding the draft FY21 general fund budget, I now declare the public hearing closed, and the Select Board will finalize the FY21 budget at its January 28th meeting. Thank you, Victoria, for your faithful participation.
And I want to thank Victoria for coming in to my office with her questions and help me refine some of our thinking about the budget and other proposals we'll hear tonight.
John, you might note that it must be that the town feels that we're managing our money all right, so.
I have a question. When you do a bond, how do you decide the length of the bond?
Well, that's something that we'll make a recommendation. You know, there's a standard bond length, but we've talked about shortening the bond and utilizing some of the money that we know is forthcoming to pay it quicker and pay a lot less interest. And so
So it's
It's juggling.
it's a
Yeah.
balancing. Yeah. So next is a continuation of review of our FY21 budget proposal. And Bill is here to review equipment, fund purchases, and request for purchase of an air-powered saw. Evening, Bill.
Good evening. Sorry I missed the first meeting. I don't know if there's any questions on that or if we're good to go on that.
Oh. Where all the money goes, you mean?
So I think you saw in the December meeting that the equipment fund is kind of pushing some of these numbers higher. And that was going to happen inevitably. You probably remember my 20-year plan I put together with all of our purchases and stuff.
Yep.
So what I'm doing now is I'm kind of drilling down into shorter term on that and looking at actual condition of our equipment, when I have them on the schedule to be replaced, and you know what the best way to get this whole schedule moving. So I actually had a few changes this year I wanted to make. I'll just summarize those. I wanted to move up a street sweeper purchase by 1 year, so that would be in this budget. I would like to exchange one of our international dump trucks for a smaller series truck, which will save money and also be better utilized in town, parking lots, things like that, going down Mill Street, tight spots. And then I want to accelerate the replacement schedule on our loader/mower. We're having some bad issues with rust on that, and it's not going to last, and I'd like to actually swap that for a tractor model with a sidearm mower, and then equip it with a 3-point hitch in the front with a pusher, so I can do some of the same things I do with this loader, and there again save money. What this does is it has an increase in this year's budget, but it has a 3-year savings of $77,000, and over the course of this 20-year budget, it's over $1 million in savings as you go and continue to replace these pieces. And it really staves off a big hit next year, which would have been $525,000, and kind of brings everything back down relatively level year after year. So, you know, in the 400 to 450 range. So.
Yeah, we talked about it in infrastructure. I wasn't there that day, but the group talked about it, yes.
So,
Any questions on that of Bill?
seems sensible, especially given the long-range view that you're saying will save us money. So I would support that direction.
So you would just have one loader after that, because we're running.
Have one loader and one backhoe, and then we also will have use of the loader that is at wastewater when we do downtown snow cleanups and whatnot, so that should not change.
Do we have one sweeper or two?
We have
sweeper?
one,
One,
20, 25, 30-year-old.
okay. And had we talked about replacing that earlier?
We did, and we missed a grant opportunity by 1 year, and they have not come back around, so it's on the schedule next
Okay.
budget year to be replaced, and it's just in bad enough shape. I want to move it up a year, so.
I think
this-
it's good. Yeah, we
is
need
this-
that.
Going to
Mhm.
replace the one that we hire in, or is this?
we don't generally hire sweeper, we hire vac trucks for cleaning.
Yeah.
This will help eliminate some of that cost too, because this will be a vacuum sweeper with the capability of cleaning out catch basins and whatnot, so,
So there is some additional savings.
yes, yep.
And no grants, you're saying, to come?
Not unless something comes available, you know, by the time it's time to purchase, so.
So, as you may recall, that was a basically federal funding that was channeled through the state. And due to the Buy American provisions of that federal grant, we could not use that money to buy a street sweeper because that was not available domestically.
That's
Okay.
right, okay. Got that.
Okay.
Everybody okay with that? All right. So I guess there's no questions on that. Bill, you want to talk to us about the air-powered saw?
Yeah, so every year, our insurer has a safety grant program. It's a 50-50 match. We usually take advantage of it for certain items. In this particular item, currently we have gas-powered cutoff saws, mainly for water and sewer breaks. So we're down in a relatively confined space, and when I first got here, I purchased some personal gas meters for our staff, and you cannot operate those saws without the carbon monoxide monitor going off. It may not, you know, be super high level, but it's high enough that it's going to set off the alarm. And what it does is it makes people a little more careless or ignoring this safety aspects and stuff of it. So we came up with this air-powered saw, and this vendor is one of our local pipe vendors that we use, and I did find some pricing online, similar type saws. In most cases, it was more, and this is a type of machine that I don't really think I'd want to purchase online anyways. You know, this will come with a local rep that we can go back to if we have issues or whatever with it. But so anyways, we submitted this through the PAXA safety grant, and they approved it, and we're just looking to sole source this to Ferguson.
And they cover 50% of the,
Yep.
So it's electric powered?
It's
air-powered.
air powered,
Air-powered.
big
So
compressor. Yep.
we have,
Oh, it's a compressor.
we already have a compressor, we have to rent for
Yeah,
that?
no, we have a compressor. Yep.
So air,
Sounds very healthy. Which I like.
Laura, we're making a green purchase.
I know, that's what I like.
You still run the compressor. It's not that green, but it's a lot safer.
What? Oh. What did you say?
Oh, do you want,
Pleasure of the board here,
do you want me to make a motion?
please.
I move to approve the purchase of an air-powered chainsaw under the sole source purchases provision of the town's purchasing policy for a total cost of $3,957.53.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Are there any questions of Bill on that?
Should we put something in there that would be covered partly by the PAC grant, or does it not need to be in the motion?
It doesn't need to be in the motion.
Okay.
That he's
Thank you.
covered by what?
Okay, I hear no questions. All in favor of
Equipment grant.
supporting the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Bill. So I wonder it went that long without somebody coming up with that solution. Oh. Okay, next is Better Middlebury Partnership. Karen and Amy are here to present an overview of BMP's budget.
So this is a summary that Karen put together with regards to the finances, where the funding comes from. I think there's in the past been some confusion about the BMP finances and where all the funding comes from. So this is somewhat of a clarity document. So if you have any specific questions about that document, we're happy to answer them. I thought I'd just sort of hit the highlights. As far as the general fund, the funding that comes from the town, the college, and the DIDC has been allocated towards salary for the executive director, who that position, as you know, has been held by Karen. And we have level funded since Karen's been around and probably
2013.
prior to that.
Yeah.
I would just like to make a note, not that it's part of any proposal, but that the salary number has not increased. There's been no request for a budget increase in past years. But given the scope of the position and what the BMP has been able to accomplish, because we do have an executive director at the helm, the board feels pretty strongly that it's time to visit those finances. So be prepared in the next go around that there'll probably be some kind of additional funding request. I think for as long as I've been a member of the board of the BMP and or the president, I've always felt that we've been really great stewards of the funding from the town and the college, and I think it's time to continue to put our efforts behind the organization. The Downtown Improvement District, as you know, also funds that position, as well as a percentage for, I think it's a line item as like a maintenance allocation. With Neighbors Together, the $15,000 allocation there was part of the BMP, was added to the BMP's revenue to offset the time that Karen was spending doing administrative work for Neighbors Together, which frankly wouldn't happen, most of it wouldn't happen without some administrative help and a paid position. I think everything else is pretty straightforward. We've done some fundraising. We had an article, there was an article in the paper about fundraising for Very Merry Middlebury, which is, the events are not part of the revenue stream, so we do have to fundraise for those and or charge for events, and as you know, most of our events are free and open to the public, and for the most part we've tried to really stay in that category. Let's see. I think that's pretty much it for that general overview. We were able to fundraise some additional funds to cover Very Merry Middlebury, which was great. We had, I think, a favorable response from the towns that we solicited donations from. We also had a couple of fundraising pieces like the Mid-Nib Bar, which we sold for $10. We raised roughly $5,000 with that one fundraiser, which was pretty great. We were apprehensive about it at first, but it turned out to be a good decision, thanks to Kelly Hickey, who suggested that program. And I think that's pretty much it as far as the BMP funding and whatnot goes. We do the Neighbors Together piece with the BMP, as far as how things get funneled around. We're probably, at some point, we'll come back to the select board and talk about the logistics of how those things all work, because we just want to make sure that the BMP is protected along with the town as far as the process by which things are approved and trickle up and down that process. But I think the BMP at this point is in good shape, and I don't know. What else you got to say? Anything?
Questions? Do you guys have any questions?
I think I have a question for the board. The salary of the staff position, I think that's Karen, right?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, the one and only.
So, one and only. So I haven't been here since 2013, so $35,000 a year we're paying. Is there no increase in cost of living? Have you considered that before?
So the BMP has not requested any, we've level funded the amount that we've requested from the town.
Okay.
And I've considered it just, this is what the job is. And so the difference is I'm now working a lot more hours.
Yeah,
right? And I will continue to work more hours
course.
even after the Neighbors Together project is done, and so that's where we're at.
I think part of what the BMP board sees is the extra energy and effort that it takes to really, because you can do certain things at a certain level, and then once you ratchet it up, it's nearly impossible to ratchet it back down. And in the expectation of the BMP and Karen's efforts, and the board certainly feels this way, it's just going to get harder and harder, and it's going to take more and more energy and time to do this job.
I see that you have been busier and busier every, this is the last 2-3 years, and doing a good job.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would echo that. I see that too, and it feels like we should be increasing the funding for that position. And I know that there's been an effort to gather membership fees too, which is good. I don't know if you want to speak to that and how somebody would become a member.
Yes, oh, go ahead.
Let me take this one if you don't mind.
Sure.
So, we actually, the BMP really in the last couple of years, and John did a great job writing about this. We really have tried to be fluid and responsive to the needs of the community. And so part of that was, the needs of our volunteers. And so when we were planning something like Midsummer Fest, we really had to listen to the volunteers who were telling us, when we started planning this event, it was great. Everybody wanted to go. It was really fun. It made a lot of money for the organization. And when we ended planning that event, it was like pulling teeth to get vendors, and it was completely exhausting our volunteers because there was one of these kinds of festivals every week by that point in the summer. And so the organization at that point made the decision that this event was no longer viable. We would try to replace it with something else. The same thing happened with the Chili Fest. So the Chili Festival really was sort of a little bit of a perfect storm between the downtown construction project and losing our sort of surface area there, and then with the temperatures going in, and then the vendors just being exhausted from the event overall, and it felt like the right time to pause the event and kind of take a step back. And then likewise with membership, most, excuse me, most of our members were downtown merchants, the vast majority. And so the BMP really felt strongly that we didn't want to continue the pressure on them when they were feeling such pressure already. But what that ended up happening is that the BMP felt that pressure as an organization to be sort of viable and sustainable beyond this project. And so that takes us to where we are now. And so we have done a lot of work as a board together looking at different fundraising strategies. We've gone through the process of becoming a 501c3 in the fall, which is a departure from our 501c6 status, which was a business organization. We're now more eligible for grants than we were before. We did the fundraising letter out to other communities, which they don't pay in as for in their taxes, and yet they do enjoy a lot of the benefits that the BMP then brings to the community. You see many folks from other towns at our events and things like that, and so we felt like that was important to give people an opportunity for that investment, and it worked. People definitely seemed to to respond to that, and then likewise the membership. We will be sending a letter to businesses, and we'll include all of Middlebury businesses, and we'll see what people are able to do. But we didn't want to rely solely on that because it just felt like, people were not necessarily in that position.
But we didn't want to not do it because we also hear from people that say, why didn't you ask me?
Mm-hmm.
So we want to give everybody ample opportunity to
Right.
support the organization that's bringing
But
some of these things.
we have a
forward.
fundraising committee within the board, and we have some really great ideas for diversifying our funding in the course of the year that we'll be tackling as soon as we get done this bridge project, and actually in the meantime as well. So so I think that as Amy, I would echo Amy's statement that I think the BMP right now feels like we're in really good shape. We were able to cover the costs of Very Merry. We're now looking ahead towards all the work that needs to happen this summer and getting ourselves on a fundraising path that feels really sustainable for us. So I feel like that's really where we are with membership and everything else.
Yeah, I didn't know if there was an individual level. I know about businesses, but can an individual join as a member?
So we actually don't have membership anymore. So at one point we had stopped membership. So and we really call it more just as an investment into the community through the BMP, because it wasn't like you were getting a list of benefits. I don't do a midnight stroll and this member business gets to be open and this one doesn't. Like when we do things for the community, it's for the whole community. So we really felt strongly that, if businesses want to invest, if individuals want to invest, it's an investment, and that's what it's called. So in terms of like a membership, like you get a benefit for being a member, we don't really have that structure anymore. But
Okay.
certainly we're not going to say no. If anyone wants to support the
will take your
organization,
check.
we will take it.
Okay.
So basically, any individual wanting to support the organization can donate money.
Absolutely. Yeah.
We specifically targeted in the mailer that we did, towns that surround Middlebury. We chose not to do Middlebury for the reason that Karen stated. Also, the list is much bigger, so it costs more money to mail out all those towns. We did a PayPal type thing, so it was effective. Just as an example, one of the ideas that came up in the group was, every town has sort of these line items for nonprofit organizations that they give to on an annual basis, and that's one approach that we could take too. So, and other events that were sort of fun ideas.
Yeah, specifically fundraising events, which at this point, all of our events are really geared toward being accessible and open to everybody. And so we're thinking of adding a few additional events to our year that would be specifically fundraising events.
Have you talked at all about hosting events not in the downtown? Like in Marble Works or
Yes.
where some of the other businesses are?
Yes. Yeah, and we have tried at different times. A couple of years ago, we did Winterfest out at the high school.
Right.
We did a piece of Winterfest out on Exchange Street last year. We've done it on a one-off basis. I would say one of the biggest challenges for that is finding the right space, because we do run up against that just for planning wise, the logistics of planning an event is sometimes a challenge outside of the core downtown area, but we certainly are really looking at ways that we can make an impact beyond the downtown as well.
I'm thinking about how you interface with Parks and Recreation and what your discussion has been around that.
So I am on the Parks and Rec committee, and so Dustin and I work really closely together in a lot of ways. And we've done a few things that have been collaborations. It's more within events. So we haven't really put on one event that was a collaboration between, it was half Parks and Rec and half us. We've invited Parks and Rec to come and operate the dunk tank as a fundraiser for the scholarship fund, for instance, during the block party, things like that. So I see definitely a lot more collaboration in the future between BMP and Parks and Rec. I think that might be a little bit of some potential that's untapped right now.
Yeah, I don't know if they could absorb one of the events for some reason or not, so.
I think they're pretty busy, is my sense, as are we all. But certainly it's worth a discussion.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from them? So I think we all recognize what you've been doing and the comments about a static salary over the course of 7 years. I think we need to work together to figure out how we continue to fund this and keep quality staff and keep it rewarding but not overtaxing you. So, we're game to talk about this throughout the year. It's certainly been great to see the energy and what has come about to support the downtown and just the events here in Middlebury. And so, keep up the good work. Your salary's not in jeopardy this year. So.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you.
And I wanted to also just, before I leave Amy to the DIDC stuff, I wanted to say thank you to all of you. I saw you all out and about during Very Merry Middlebury, specifically Midnight Strolls, and that support is really appreciated. So thanks.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Karen.
Thanks, Karen.
Thank you.
Am I next?
So next is Amy with the Downtown Improvement District
Solo.
Commission.
Okay, so our proposed budget is fairly simple and falls in line with what we've done in years past. The couple things I'll just point out quickly. The sidewalk frames for event posters, that's a direct reaction to the soon-to-be missing banner across Main Street. So with Rob Carter's help and Kathleen's and a few other people from the college and DPW, we've come up with a plan and we purchased these sidewalk frames that can be anchored into the ground, and the DIDC thought that was a valid opportunity to spend some money, so we approved that, and it's a small amount, $1,000, which I imagine over the course of time, if they get wrecked, we'll have to replace them, but I think there's little risk there. And then we had a suggestion about outdoor ashtrays. Those are those, tall skinny things you put your cigarette butts in. And we approved purchase of, I think, 5 of them as a little bit of a trial run. It was a suggestion that Laura had brought to Kathleen's attention. I think the board thought we don't see it as a huge problem, cigarette butts all over the place, but if it can help a little bit and we can find strategic places to put them that helps keep the downtown just a touch cleaner, we'd be glad for that. And again, small expense that we were happy to approve. And the last one, the larger figure there, the $6,000 figure is for the proposed 21 budget. That is to support Kelly Hickey in what she's doing at Bundle. So you'll remember that when she first made her proposal for $1,000 a month for 3 to 4 events, quickly exploded. And Bundle's been wildly successful on a number of fronts. And so in order to sustain that opportunity, she's secured additional resources through the college and the lease and all that sort of thing. But the DIDC, in part because we partly support the BMP, and a salary figure there felt like it was a justified expense to support this for the same reason, that it brings some vitality to downtown and hopefully helps fill some empty storefronts, which there aren't going to be fewer empty storefronts in the near future. So it's good to have an active space. So we support that.
Just one question. Have we thought about increase in staff time for taking care of the outdoor ashtrays? Just make sure we budgeted. I don't imagine it's much, but make sure we budget in for taking care of those. But I'm assuming we could probably cite those where we're already dealing with
garbage
trash
cans. I think that was our
recycling.
understanding too. Yeah.
Okay.
And actually, it would probably make sense. It would prevent people from flicking their cigarette butts into the garbage cans and causing hazards.
Some of the restaurants have their own ashtrays outside, or so where are we going to place these?
We haven't decided yet.
Okay, so
I think we decided to leave that up to DPW, and the correlation with the garbage cans was the discussion we had.
Okay.
Yep.
So,
Looks like you're gonna go into FY21 with a pretty healthy fund balance.
Mm-hmm.
Coming out of the bridge project, you might find some things that the downtown businesses would like.
Would need,
as
actually, we
amenities.
talked specifically
Talk
about
about
that.
chairs and
Yeah,
stuff,
in
you
the
know, benches
last,
that's what I was thinking.
last year we talked about that the DIDC wouldn't necessarily be the organization that comes up with the ideas on what all those improvements might be, but more is a reaction to the needs of the community.
Yeah.
And so we very specifically had that conversation about the post-bridge cleanup, if you will, and how those needs might change, and padding things here now so that we have the ability to make those improvements down the road.
Yeah, because there's things we've talked about that aren't in the budget, the maybe some benches, some
Mhm.
bike racks, things like that. We might be thinking about. Probably not a major expense, but something that,
So-
That's sort of what the DIDC
Helps
has
finish
been
it all up.
established for, so it would make sense.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly, and that's what I wanted to say. I'm really grateful to the DIDC because it has funded things like that. We've gotten bike racks from you. We've gotten rapid flashing beacon lights, which make a big difference from you. So you've made great contribution to the downtown's beautification and safety, and litter management is part of that too. So the cigarette butts, while not a big thing, will be helpful because we are seeing more visitors, that could use that, I think. So I do hope to see benches and tables too in the future,
Well, I think
or
it's a-
other mobility devices that might help.
Yeah, I think it's a real opportunity for the commission to be aware of those things and to help fund them. It also, because of the way the DIDC is funded with, and every 7 years we have to go back and I don't know what the right terminology is, but sort of resubmit that request to the building owners or the property owners within the district. these are the kinds of things that we want to be able to say to them. Look at all the things that we've done in the last 7 years. I also promised the select board, because of my position with the BMP and the DIDC, that I should be able to look at both organizations and figure out how they not overlap but dovetail with one another. And you know, some of these funding things are in line with that discussion too.
Right. Next time you go back, it'll be a different downtown than
Yeah,
last time. There was a little bit of a struggle to get everybody on board,
right.
so.
We made it by the skin of our teeth. But yeah.
Okay, any other questions of Amy?
That's good.
Is this a question for Amy? Yes.
I was just curious what the long-term intention is for the contribution to bundle. Is that something that you anticipate continuing to do moving forward? I don't understand the whole history, but you don't have to give it, but I'm just curious, is this a one-time?
It's a one-time. Yep.
Okay, thank you, Amy.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, next. Jamie? Jamie and Eben?
I actually brought Patrick Gainey with me. Eben had to go last minute.
Yeah, understand.
Yeah, Patrick is on our board. He's our board secretary.
Okay, so now it is open forum.
Okay, thanks for having us. I'm Jamie Montague. I'm the executive director at the Middlebury Area Land Trust, and with me is Patrick Gainey. And we have put in a proposal, a request to the town to look at the contribution that malt has been receiving for about a decade now. It's been an annual contribution, and the history of it is that it was instated to support malt in managing Wright Park, which, as you are aware, is a town forest, and malt has been the administrator and manager of the property since it was donated by Will Jackson. And, you know, over the last 10 years, at least that's as far back as malt records show receiving the contribution, we've really increased a lot of time and resources that we're dedicating to Wright Park. And I started the request from that point because it's really the point where the town and malt have the most formal connection as the official managers of the property. But as you're aware, there's many, many ways that malt engages with the town of Middlebury and provides support to trail networks and the TAM, community programming, et cetera. So I started looking at some of the numbers, which I shared with you in this letter, and when you start to add it up, it's becoming increasingly clear that we're putting a lot more resources into Wright Park specifically, and also the other aspects that we work on in the town than the contribution is covering. And so I felt like it was time to come and share that and talk about how much we would appreciate an increased contribution. We're not asking for too much. If you saw the math I did, looking at this next year, it's about a $1,600 increase that we're requesting. And so as you can see, you know, malt dedicates about 200 hours a year to Wright Park specifically, and again, many, many more hours to other resources in the town. This money, I see it as a transfer of energy, because with it we're able to engage people in the community and coordinate volunteers, hundreds of volunteer hours towards the town lands. And there are other really concrete expenditures like mowing and garbage and trash removal. Laura, you're familiar, you helped out with that recently. And we also have recently incurred a new fee at the Boathouse Bridge Railroad crossing. If you remember, that went in a few years ago. There's an annual fee that goes along with that, and that's just going to continue in perpetuity. And so far, since it got instated, malt has been contributing to that entirely ourselves, and so that's another reason that prompted me to come and talk about how that can be a shared contribution, because as we're all aware, the Boathouse Bridge is a huge community resource and used by people, college and residents alike.
Jamie, I'm curious, what's that fee for?
It's instated by the Vermont Agency of Transportation, and it's just a
It's like
fee.
a licensing fee
It's a
for
fee.
using the crossing of the railroad tracks
Yeah.
to get to the Boathouse Bridge.
It didn't used to exist until they required us to put that new crossing in, which was about a $48,000 crossing.
Right. No, I remember when
Yeah.
we did that. I didn't realize it was gonna be an annual fee on top of that.
I didn't either until I inherited the responsibility of paying it from Malt. So, you know, but I mean, really in the scheme of things, that fee is nominal compared to the larger costs and time and resources that we're putting in. So I know Patrick wanted to say a few things as well, and we wanted to give you time to ask questions.
Sure, thanks for having us.
welcome.
I would just like to add that in the 2.5 years that Jamie has been the executive director, it's the first time the organization has had a full-time director, and because of that, she has been able to add a lot of structure to the organization's planning and strategies for going forward. And because of that, that has led to a lot of increases in all the numbers that we measure, from the people participating in our events to the number of kids participating in summer camps. And this additional grant from the town will really help make a difference in allowing Jamie to continue to find new ways to find that intersection between Malt and the community here. So thank you very much.
Yeah. So, happy to answer any questions that you have.
Questions of Jamie or Patrick?
Well, I think you do a great service to the town, and
Thank you, Victor.
we probably would have to increase our taxes considerably to come near to even provide a fraction of what you do. So I think it's, thank you for that, yeah.
Thank you.
You know I'm a supporter of
Yes.
Malt, and I think it's a reasonable request. I think other agencies are coming to us, so, you know, in general, we look at that, but the voters will get to decide that too. So, you know, I think I would support putting it into our budget, and then the voters can let us know how they feel about all and any of these increases. And they'll have a chance to hear this tonight to know what the rationale is, so I appreciate that. I know one thing I'm watching too is what happens with the Creek Road and the recreational capacity there, and what Malt might be bringing to that, including another crossing potentially between Creek Road and South Street, which would be wonderful. So I hope that we can definitely
What is that?
continue our partnerships.
Can you
What's that?
share what I know you guys did the walk last spring on Creek Road, right?
Yes, we're
Where
still
are
deciding.
you in that process right now?
We're getting close, not quite there yet.
That's next up on the
We-
agenda.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
If you want to stay, you'll see some
Yeah.
conversation about
Okay,
that.
all right. That's good to know.
yeah.
I can always reach out for more information another time.
How do you come up with the amount, though, you know, like that you've requested?
So if you, basically the bolded values in the letter that I wrote to you are the raw concrete expenses that we can show on our books that we expend on Wright Park specifically.
That's the way, okay. And your point
And
is,
like I've said, you
it
know,
goes beyond.
the expenses are far broader than that. We just felt that it was time to demonstrate that for years Malt has been putting resources that we've been raising towards the town forests, and not just Wright Park, but Means Woods and Chipman Hill and Battelle Woods, and so,
Yes.
yeah.
How are your non-appropriated funds coming in, donations, and
It's great.
still
I can say that.
pretty strong?
Yes, the organization is doing really well.
Again, thanks to you. You know, you're a great fundraiser.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been really proud, and we were able to just use our some of our surplus from this last year and put it into the TAM endowment, which is the first time that the organization's been able to put non-designated funds into the TAM endowment. In other words, all the money that's gone into the TAM endowment fund has come from specific donations requested for that purpose, and this is the first time that we've been able to incorporate operational funds in there, which I have to say I'm super proud of. It feels
Good
really
work.
good. Yeah.
Any other questions of them?
More.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We appreciate all of you so much. Thank you.
Next is EndofLife Services. Okay, and David's here tonight.
And I am joined by Lori Borden, who's program coordinator at our organization. I will be brief. It's a relatively small request. I hope you will consider it to be small. I'm David Andrews, president of the board of EndofLife Services. This is a new organization in the past year, but it has quite a long history because it combines hospice volunteer services, which has existed for, 30 years or so?
36.
And Addison County Respite Home, which you may know of as ARCH, which has the end-of-life rooms at the Helen Porter Nursing Home and also at Porter Hospital. For quite a few years, Hospice Volunteer Services received an annual appropriation of $2,000 a year from the town of Middlebury. I think it's like 10 years at least. And EOLS, End of Life Services, is now requesting an increase to $3,000. So that's why we're here for the next fiscal year. The range of our services has definitely increased, and we're providing more and more services to more and more people. I'm sure it's no surprise to any of you that Middlebury has become a retirement mecca over the past 20 or 30 years, and because of that, our population is aging. Our average population is getting older. On the handout that I just passed out, you'll notice that not only are we aging, we are also dying. Scandalous thought, but
That's inevitable, you know.
that's right.
Okay.
Sort of an inevitability. But it's a fairly striking increase in the past 10 years, almost a 50% increase in the per capita, the number of people in the year who have died. At the bottom of the page I just passed out, and I think also in the letter you received, there are a list of the various services that we provide, and they range from singing to people while they're dying, bereavement care for people who have lost loved ones, public education events. We've had a couple of showings of a program involving Atul Gawande's book, Being Mortal, and we've had wonderful turnouts for those. Lots of people seem to be interested in thinking about death and talking about it and planning for it. Also from the handout you just received, you'll notice that more than half of our volunteers are people from Middlebury, and more than half of the people receiving services are living here in Middlebury. The grant is obviously small. It's a very small part of your budget and a pretty small part of ours, but having support from local communities is very helpful. It's particularly helpful when we apply for foundation support, and we have actually been quite successful in that regard just in the past year. We recently received word that we're receiving a 3-year, $25,000 a year grant from the Hale Foundation. And anytime we apply for foundation support, it's very helpful to have towns and to be able to show also that our board of directors are supportive of the organization, which they are. So I'm very happy to entertain questions. Lori is very much involved in the day-to-day operations of End-of-Life Services, and I try to keep pretty close tabs on them myself.
Okay, any questions of Dave or Lori?
Just a quick question. The EOLS service, it's restricted to these 5 places, or is it available for anybody?
Restricted to what?
These 5 facilities?
Oh, no,
you
these are,
mentioned.
these institutions that are mentioned here are that's just an example of some of the facilities that have been constructed over the past 10 years or a little bit more. One of the reasons that our population is aging is that we're providing a lot of good housing for seniors. We are, though, now in the process of establishing volunteer placement opportunities at Eastview and the residence and Shard Villa. So these are areas of increased service.
Really?
I think Farhad just wanted to be sure that you were servicing beyond these.
Oh, yes.
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 Yeah. But the reason they're on the handout is just as an example of how life has changed in Middlebury over.
And how can people reach out to you if they need
Uh,
services?
Give us a call. Yeah, but we also would receive referrals from staff members at a place like the residence or Eastview.
Over, yeah.
We have more and more people, even just walking through our doors, understanding that we do have things like grief counseling and an incredible library for people to come in and borrow books or films on death and dying, and they've found it's a safe place to come, and they don't have to pay anything, and we're always have someone there to answer questions or just sit down and chat.
And the offices are in the Marble Works directly across from the Addison Independent.
So good to know, yeah.
Do you guys receive funding from other towns in the
We
area?
do, and I just happen to have a list of what some of those sources are. Virgins is currently giving $2,000 a year, Bristol $1,200, Weybridge $600, Shoreham $500, Ripton $500, New Haven $600, Cornwall $600. So we're encouraging you to achieve supremacy.
Here's our chance.
And we need these figures in here for FY 2018, David, those were just Middlebury.
Yes.
54% of your services went directly to Middlebury
Yes,
residents.
yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, so no other questions. Thank you for the service you
Thank you.
provide our community.
And
Very
thank you
good.
for listening to us. I can leave a few copies of this handout up here if you'd like.
I see sitting in the back, an old friend of the community. Hi, Terry. Yeah. Things going well out west?
Yes, very well, snowing.
Well, would you send some of that
Would
this
you
way?
bring some this way?
Although Bill would say, no, don't send it.
Let me finish the roofing on our new project first. So, next is Creek Road Task Force, and I'm going to pass the mic to Heather to...
No, I was just going to give a quick introduction to this glaze your eyes over spreadsheet that I have up on the screen and is in your packet. Because it contains a lot of, I have extra copies up here. Susan, Victoria, and Don. This is on one sheet an analysis of the Cross Street Bridge fund balance and the uses that we have dedicated those fund, the Cross Street Bridge Fund and the local option tax to, along with some proposals to tap into those funds. So why don't we start on line 16, which gives a summary of the college gift for the Cross Street Bridge, which is $600,000 a year. Our local option tax revenue projection, which is currently $1 million per year. And showing for the first time in FY19 our interest revenue. I did not project any interest revenue going out in an effort to keep these estimates very conservative. And then the dedicated expenses we have for the Cross Street Bridge debt service and maintenance are just shown here. Also to note that recently the Cross Street Bridge bonds were refinanced every 5 years. If the interest rate falls, the bond bank does reissue the bonds, and we are going to see a significant savings up in the order of $1 million over the course of the next 20 years. Those bonds were for 30 years.
But they don't go up.
They don't go up.
It only goes down.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you can see here in
Or
the
if it goes up, you don't have to opt in.
Right. So in the debt service, you see how that it declines steadily over the course of the next over the life of the bond. So line 22. The savings in the debt service isn't shown here, it's just incorporated into the debt service payments.
Okay.
So then on line 19, you have your total revenue less your cross-street maintenance debt debt and maintenance on line 24, which gives you the total surplus available on an annual basis. So we're looking at $575,000 in FY20, $593 in FY21. So in FY20, we had applied $400,000 for the capital improvements, leaving us with a projection of $176,000 going forward, feeding into the year-end fund balance, which is at the top of the page. So then, looking at a FY21 beginning fund balance for the Cross Street Bridge Fund of $2.8 million, right there at line 7 on your page. Revenue, expenses with a $593,000 surplus anticipated. So we had discussed $400,000 again for capital improvements, $157.40 for the rail platform and the downtown capital improvements. Brian called last week and suggested that we take a look at funding the debt service for the flood resiliency project and the wastewater treatment facility reuse project out of the Cross Street Bridge Fund. And it seems that we do have the capacity to do that. This is, as we had originally budgeted for it, we had projected out a 20-year bond. This proposes a 7-year bond. Basically, we have been using 20-year bonds to mitigate the impact on the tax rate for particularly large projects like the town offices that we could not swing with existing cash flow. But going from a 20-year bond to a 7-year bond on the PD project, which is an $850,000 project, saves $178,809 in interest. For the flood resiliency project, which is a $500,000 town share of a $2 million project, we save $105,000 in interest. So that is the proposal I'm presenting to you tonight.
And like to have you digest this. What we need to finalize it, but the thinking here is Cross Street Bridge Fund is an infrastructure focused fund mechanism for us, and rather than bond them long term and roll them into the tax rolls, if we, as part of our bond proposal, show how we're going to pay for it, it will not impact the tax rate, and it will be paid very quickly through funds that we are already collecting with a focus on infrastructure needs for the community, and get it approved all as one motion and vote through our taxpayers. So as opposed to coming back each year on those would already roll into our known. The nice thing is Kathleen did a really good job laying this out, that it does not impact, the way she's laid it out, it does not impact our Cross Street Bridge Fund balance. Mm-hmm. We're just using what we're gaining each year, and we're still able to draw a $400,000 additional support for other infrastructure. I mean, she has, if you look across, she's already projecting the $400,000 that we're using to do other infrastructure projects that we know we're behind on. And so, you know, I would love to see us support something of this nature. She's taking care of the water system improvements, the flood resiliency project, and the wastewater treatment facility reuse project.
So that's a portion of the water system improvements. We're still going to have to fund some of it.
But the rest of it's going through the water. I mean, the portion that we had thought we would support through the general. Victoria, we heard you.
Thank you. It's really great, yeah.
Yeah.
Really pleased. A new way of approaching.
So I'll look for you to support this at town meeting, right? Thank you.
Thank you, Kathleen. This is-
So with, we were looking at a tax, increase needed in tax revenue of about $131,000 on the second draft of the budget. This, using Cross Street Bridge funds for that debt service reduces that number by $36,000. So we're down to about $95,000 or a cent on the tax rate. Working with Town Treasurer and Accounting Services Manager Jackie Sullivan to take a close look at the fund balance to see if there is an opportunity to apply more from our fund balance, our general fund balance, in order to further reduce the tax rate projection. We, as a reminder, we already have applied $150,000 as part of this funding proposal, and we'll be coming back to you at the next meeting with a recommendation going forward. But we do think, given the favorable results we had in FY19, we'll be able to recommend a higher number.
Can I go? I do appreciate that and do think it's a good idea, but also want to be a little conservative that we keep, you know, money in that fund balance for the years when things don't go well or we have something unexpected. So I'm assuming you're already thinking about that.
Right, we like to have like at least a 10% of our operating budget as in reserve.
Yeah. Yeah, okay.
Okay.
All right.
I hadn't seen that in the packet. It's good work. Short
It
notice,
just- it
too.
just
How do you
came in-
pull this stuff
It
off?
just came in today, so.
Awesome. My turn.
Now it's your turn.
Okay, so this is really just a quick update. As you recall, in my ever optimistic world, that I would be able to come up with a great solution to Creek Road in 4 to 6 meetings by the end of December. Yay for me being so optimistic on these things. Of course, it's January, and while we've done some good work and we've had the meetings, I think we may have rushed just a tad trying to get in the schedule for infrastructure and the Selectboard. So the Creek Road Task Force did approve a recommendation. We brought it to the Infrastructure Committee last Thursday. Based on the conversation and questions around that, it became apparent that we needed to do a little further work in refining and fleshing out the next steps, I think. But I did want to provide what we have so far, and so that's the alternatives analysis and then also the recommendation. I have reached out to the task force and had suggested this Friday, I think this Friday or the following Friday as a next meeting time. I've only heard back from 2. I was hoping tonight to be able to say to you when our next meeting would be. but I haven't heard from 2 of the committee members, so that's not set in stone yet, but I'll certainly let Kathleen know, and she could send out to you know, and put it on our email for any people that are interested in attending. So I'm really just hoping that the select board would give the task force a little bit more time to polish our recommendation beyond what's presented here before we open it up for a lot of questions and discussion based on the feedback from the infrastructure committee. Although they did support the recommendation as presented 4-1 last Thursday. So
Are those questions the ones that came out of the infrastructure committee, or they're dangling questions for your committee to work through?
no, those are outstanding questions that would need to be worked through as the next steps in the recommendation.
Any questions of that work? And Kathleen, did our task to that committee have a mandate for a timeline, or do we need to do anything formally to extend that timeline? And basically, it was a target, not a...
It was a target.
It was self-imposed optimism.
Yeah, okay, so because I didn't remember that we gave you a mandate to come back at a specific time, but yeah.
No, I think I was just,
You'd given us a...
Heather gave herself a timeline.
Yeah. I think
I
we've...
always want things in government to move faster than they do.
Is that kind of like the Exchange Street sidewalk?
Yeah.
So,
So how long have I been on the infrastructure committee now? When we're just now talking about the final on that wastewater treatment plant, the final decommissioning and moving forward, and yeah, anyway.
I think I see
I'm
Dan
still-
in the
I'm
back.
still
How
gonna be
far back does
optimistic.
that go, Dan? Like,
Oh,
we
no.
we were working on that when I first joined what was back then the Public Works Committee, must be 14, 15 years ago.
Well, 2003 was the first time Tom Haley made his first memo about it.
Yes, okay, yeah.
2003, something like that.
So.
All right.
So, and you guys are good waiting?
We're
and
fine.
tabling?
We'd rather have
So
you comfortable with your recommendation and that it's all worked through, and we'll act upon it when you feel that you've got a solution that is going to be workable.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you for your
And
support.
it's not too costly.
Yeah. I think that's one of the keys.
That's
that
the key.
They
I
understand
agree.
that.
Yes.
So Dan is here to talk about Colonial Drive engineering amendment for Green
Sure.
Mountain Engineering.
Sure. So I'm requesting tonight for you to approve an amendment, number 1, to Green Mountain Engineering for the engineering services for Colonial Drive. Just to go back a little bit in time, earlier in it was April of 2019, you approved basically a preliminary engineering agreement with them, basically to do survey, find out what we've got on the ground, get an idea of what we might do, and then have them come back to us to present what the real engineering design services would be. And that's what this agreement is.
Okay.
So for those at home and on TV, the project is wastewater, sanitary sewer, main improvements, water main improvements, stormwater improvements, and then the actual road surface, improvements, which would probably be recycled and repaved. So it's basically a do-over. Green Mountain has furnished an amendment for that final design work to get us to the point of putting it out to bid. As I told the infrastructure committee, we would not bid it until we get a good handle on where we are with the Court Street water main, Maple Street storm sewer, Washington Street water main. There's a lot of big projects out there that are priority over this, but I want to get this designed so we can get some costs identified so we know where to program it in the future years. We also have Katy Road coming up with a couple V-Trans grants. They're going to prioritize some of the use of our other money. So I want to get this to the point of getting it costs identified and then see how we can program that in the next few years. So tonight I'm asking you to approve their amendment for $19,200.
I'll make a motion to approve the contract amendment number 1 with Green Mountain Engineering for the Colonial Drive Improvement Project at a total cost of $19,200. Oh, for an amended cost of $19,200, total cost of $28,950.
Yes.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Are there any questions?
Well, it's my neighborhood. Do I have to?
You better support it. Your neighbors won't be happy if you don't support. In this, doing this way not only gives you a better foundation for budgeting in the future, but it does give us that one up and ready when there's a grant that comes out and we can say, this is all engineered and cost estimated and we can do it for this.
Right. Yeah, it really helps down the road to
Yeah.
have this identified. You plug things in.
Okay.
Can I just, I mean, definitely water is an issue in that region, as we know, with Chipman Hill. And the Halloween storm was brutal. And so anything we can do to improve the direction of water is going to be very important. So the flooding that happens at the corner by the animal hospital and the graveyard, would that be cleared up with this work, or that's something else?
Yeah, that's something else. All I can say is, back in the 1990s, the town went in behind the animal hospital and did a huge French drain system behind that to bring that stuff out, more like groundwater.
Yeah.
There is some storm basins back there, but that kind of water and that kind of slope, you're going to get that.
Yeah, it just really swamps there, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, any other questions? Hearing none, all in favor of supporting the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? Okay,
Thank you.
thank you, Dan. So Kathleen's got a draft town meeting warning for us to discuss.
Okay, one addition to the warning / agenda that you have before you is that being her first year, moderator Susan Shashak has said that she would like to do an introduction, some housekeeping, and an overview of how she will be conducting the meeting. Brian, Victor, and Farhad on Article 1. And then Article 2 shaved a little bit off the amount to be borrowed because we have been boosting funding for equipment fund purchases, so we won't have to borrow for all of those pieces of equipment, just the street sweeper and the 2 police cruisers. Article 3 is a change from what we've done in the past. Previously, we were doing a separate vote for the cross-street bridge funds. Article 3 combines that and changes it. Right now, what we do is the local option tax comes in, the amount from the college comes into the general fund. We pay out the debt service, and then we transfer it into the Cross Street Bridge Fund. So what this proposes is just to keep the money in the general fund, because we'll be expending it on the capital improvements and the debt service, so we don't have to make the change, transfer it out, then transfer it back in. So it'll, and whatever surplus is remaining, next year, the surplus is only $10,000 at the bottom of your spreadsheet. That will be transferred to the Cross Street Bridge Fund. So with that big change is under review by Town Council Benj Detman to make sure we can streamline that way. The usual Article 4, proposing 2 installments for the collection of taxes. As we may have discussed, Town Treasurer Jackie is recommending 2 collections again next year so that we avoid having people coming into the downtown to pay their taxes in the middle of the summer, which is typically when August 15th is the first due date, or had been historically. So this is the 2 collection time. And Jackie said that that went well this year. There was some concern about the 2 bigger installments, but she can take payment plans along your calendar. Same with the same article as always on Article 5 about the penalties on delinquent taxes.
Can I interrupt for a second? So, can we say that in the meeting about Article 4? That people can work with Jackie if they are concerned about the 2 payments to set up? Okay.
Article 6, this is the article to take $1 million from the Cross Street Bridge Fund Reserve to fund water system improvements in the Court Street, Court Square, Washington Street area. Right now, that project is estimated at $2.5 million. There is a proposal to fund the additional $1.5 million with water rate increases over phased over 5 years. We also recently learned just last week that if we bond for this, there may be funding available in the form of loan forgiveness from the state drinking water fund. And so we're meeting with engineers this Thursday to look into that further. So we'll report back at your next meeting before the warning is finalized.
And Kathleen, the way we have that set up, we're paying it over 4 years, the 1 million. Would we be bonding on a 4-year bond, or we're not actually doing it until?
We, as currently conceived, we wouldn't be bonding at all. But we just want to make sure that we're getting all of the great state grant funding that we can, if they have some other funding mechanism that's required.
So this project would be paid entirely from Cross Street Bridge and
the state grants?
No, and fee increases over 5 years, and we would not be bonding any of that 2.5 million. We would be paying it unless it's advantageous for some.
Yeah. So, but we're doing it in 2021.
Right, the first phase of that, which is right adjacent to the town green, is going to be in 2021.
And that's about a $685,000 piece?
Right, with 300,000 coming from the Cross Street Bridge Fund, 325.
Yeah.
So that 2.5 million is over 4 years. 4 years, sorry, 4 years.
Over 4 years, but, yeah, I guess I'd have to see the cash flows on that. So the only thing I was gonna say is, we've talked about it and we feel it's fair that some of it comes out of, that the town contribute to what to the water project, because the town benefits by what it does supporting businesses and everything. I just think we need to make sure very clear when we talk about this article, why we feel some of it should come out, why it shouldn't all be paid for by the water users. And so that's where I was headed with that. But the other is the cash flow, and how does that work if we're not gonna bond, and we're gonna pay it over 4 years, but we're doing it in, year X, but we're gonna pay it through X plus 3. where's that money when we gotta pay the contractor when he does the work, so.
So I think we will have in
So
the capital.
this work as proposed would be phased over those fiscal years. Dan can provide more information on that.
Yes, we looked at
There's
the schedules of the infrastructure committee of, I don't have it on top of my head, but over like the next 3 construction seasons, we would be trying to, that's when we would tap the funds. So there would be a project that would happen in the fall of 2020, and then in the spring of 2021, and then Washington Street would be in 2022 after the V-Trans paving is done. So there's 3 projects kind of like over three fiscal years. Right.
So if you look, and Dan put this together, the available is what we anticipate having in the water capital budget, having raised fees for water users.
Correct.
And then what's in the needed column is what would come from the Cross Street Bridge Fund. And so we would be paying cash for this, for the work that we need done.
Where is that?
It's actually,
It's in the infrastructure committee packet of December 12th.
All right, well,
Yeah.
the part I was missing was the cash flows of this.
Right.
So, and then those fees, if we're accumulating that much extra, what do you project in year, 4, 5, 6? Are there other projects, or do those fees revert back? Because I know we have a laundry list of projects that.
Right. So we talked a while ago, last June, about raising the by 110,000 over for each year for the next 5 years in rates to get the number up where it needs to be to try to adequately fund water main replacements, for forever. Of course, costs go up, with inflation, but that's a starting number we discussed about getting to raising that up. So you'll see that in this available funds, this number jumps by about that 109,000 and change from year to year, year to year, year to year. There'd be one more year of that. That'd be the 5th year. So we would be adding about $550,000 a year for capital improvements for water main. So we would be getting close to that $775,000 a year, $775,000 a year for capital water main improvements.
And that is the amount that Dan calculated based on our number of miles of water main in a
Life
What was
cycle.
necessary in the life cycle, what was necessary to keep it maintained
Right.
long-term.
Right.
I remember when you gave that to us, it was
Right.
kind of a scary number.
yep.
Yeah.
It's still
Still a bit scary.
scary.
Yeah.
So if
It's
I
not
can
less scary.
take a couple seconds on the loan forgiveness kind of possibility. I talked to Cecilia, I think her name was, from the state today, about Court Street Water Main, and we submitted an application a year ago, 2019, for water loan, blah, blah, blah. And we didn't make the list. But we're on the list, but we didn't make the priority list. So what happens is when other projects above you don't get funded, then they come back to you and say, hey, you're still on the list. Would you might be interested? Yeah, okay, tell me more. The way it works out is you still have to, bond a project, and they can do some kind of loan forgiveness. It depends on how you rank and your low modded income, so on and so forth. And I said, this is all great. I said, but, we really don't want to be bonding too much because it takes our money away available for other projects. I have a hunch they're kind of getting this throughout the state because towns are not using the money. So she said, well, we can be very flexible, on how we can, help you do this project. I said, it'd be really great if you could just grant us, some money rather than having us borrow. Why pay interest on this? She says, well, I tell you what, I told her we had a meeting coming up with our engineers. She said, get back to me, let me know what your thoughts are, maybe we can work something out. I said,
$2.5 million?
I said, you know, I didn't
Write
say,
a
but you
check.
know, 100 grand, 200 grand, hey, you know, I mean, they're gonna forgive it, but yet you're gonna incur interest costs to actually get your hands on it. That doesn't make any sense, you know? So it seems like the wastewater side and the water side, they've got a lot of money and they're having a hard time getting it out there, you know? So that's news you can use, or not.
Yeah, good news.
So I do think in that article, it is important to maybe stress that this is one way for the broader community and visitors help pay for water system improvements that they enjoy when they come here to our businesses, and it's not, you know, solely on the backs of just the businesses, so.
Yeah, I mean, we all are supportive of it. I think it's got to be part of your presentation, Heather, that it's scripted in there and explain why we're making that recommendation.
You mean I gotta follow a script?
No,
Okay.
no. It, notes,
I'll try.
some off-the-cuff notes. So,
Okay, Article 8, there's a petitioned article for the Turning Point Center, $5,000. Article 9 is that bond vote, just in case, for the water system improvements for $2.5 million. More to follow on that. Article 10 is the flood resiliency bond vote. You have to bond for the full thing, get authorized for the whole thing. Anticipating $1.5 million from FEMA, working to secure that. And finally, the adaptive reuse project for the PD. This article says $1 million. The latest architect's estimate is $850,000, so I will decrease that to $850,000.
And that was after applying the, what was left from the settlement to do the site work, right?
Right. I think that's an entirely different project that's not
Separate,
included,
yeah.
but I'll check on that, Heather.
Yep. Sorry, I'm probably confusing things.
And that's it. Back under Article 7, we had the town meeting poll with Laura. And Laura has done a draft of the town meeting poll.
Right, so you can see that basically we're using it as a tool to inform voters of what they can find in the way of services and how they can participate in our various committees. So, just trying to pull that out from my own pile here, just a sec. I passed that out, but I'm looking for it.
Thank you.
somewhere.
Let me see.
Here we go.
Oh, yeah, I do have it, yeah.
Okay. So we didn't ask for all the demographic information because we've really gotten that before, and we're just using this as an opportunity to tell people that we do have a town email list and they can get on it. You know, and then we're giving them an opportunity to indicate their extent of agreement on a number of, just a few statements. We asked this last year, you know, if people generally think Middlebury is a welcoming community where it's easy to feel included. We're just, again, just getting the temperature of how people are feeling about that. I added these 3 others that I think I heard over the past year that we might want to just get our finger on the pulse of how people are feeling about these things, including installation of a portable toilet in the town green vicinity, how people feel about redesignating some Main Street parking as paid parking and how they might feel about extending the parking attendant to a full year position. And I know the chief said that the parking attendant is full year this year as an experiment, and he's sort of monitoring that. So we'll see. Basically, it's just a way to kind of get people's feeling about how to manage access to the downtown. Then I've explained that, the town has several committees and commissions and that we welcome attendance and participation. So it's really informing the community of what those committees are and where, when and where some of them meet, knowing that those times change from year to year depending on the committee, but, generally this is the precedent. And they can indicate their interest. They can give us feedback on town meeting, and then on the backside, you can see that the town website has links to several helpful websites, and this is really just directing people to the incredible resource that the town website is, and how much you can find there and where you can find it. And I don't know if there's time at town meeting to do a little tour of the website. That might be useful, and just point them to some of these resources in terms of how to navigate it, and get the information. If we have time and people are up for that, we could consider that. So, if you look at the last part, you'll find lots of other useful information at the Town of Middlebury website. And I just listed a couple as a sample of things that you could find there, like, these are the possible links. And it's a way of just also reminding people of the work that we've done on Creek Road, on planning downtown, and other common questioned items. So that was the idea, and then an open-ended final question where people can provide their general comments, which is useful for us year after year. So that's the direction that it took this year. So you can absorb that. It's not final yet, but it will be soon because of early voting, which we want it ready for that. And that will be, I'm not sure exactly when early voting
When's that start?
I don't know.
Yeah. But whenever that starts, that's when we want it ready.
Can I make one comment?
Mhm.
Just more formatting. The bottom section of the front page, the town meeting comments,
Mhm.
I think I would move that to the back page,
Mhm.
because there's not much, like, I flipped it over thinking I was gonna, like, you're actually looking for comments there, and there's not a lot of room to write.
Mhm.
So just formatting, I think we would get more response from people if that might move to somewhere where people had room to write comments.
Okay.
And I really, really, really strongly support calling this the Assembly poll.
No.
Another comment is just that, on the back page where you're giving the town website, because you have /community, it looks like that's the site you would go to, like townofmiddlebury.org/community to find those resources. So I think you wanna take out the slash and write or. You know what I mean?
No.
Middlebury.org or community websites.
Right, or.
No,
community.
actually, that's the page, so /, so if you go to,
It's not.
okay, all right, I'll take it off.
It is, /web_resources.
Oh, okay,
But
technically,
it's more complicated, so I think if
Okay.
people just go to the site, it'll.
okay, all right.
But it is, let me get back, if you, oh. Sorry. If you go back, it is a tab across the top that says community websites. So if you said, all the ones listed below can be accessed from the townofmiddlebury.org
Oh,
under the community websites tab,
that is true.
maybe that would be a little clearer for people.
Okay,
Like, or the community websites drop down and then they're,
yes.
so.
Okay.
So, if we finalize this at our next board meeting, that should be in time, right? So take it home, digest it, and bring comments back for our next meeting to finalize this.
See?
So next, the assembly poll. Next item on the agenda is declaration of the official intent of town to finance the flood resiliency project. And Kathleen, we've got a,
As we've done with the water and wastewater projects, if there's a possibility that you're going to bond for a project, it's required that the board pass an authorizing resolution, and this is it. With your motion, Ann Webster will sign it on the board's behalf.
pleasure of the board.
Well, I'll move that we authorize our town clerk, Ann Webster, to sign the declaration of official intent of the town of Middlebury in relation to potential bonding for the construction of our flood resiliency improvements in East Middlebury.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Everybody understands what we're doing, right? It's just a notification, we're not actually bonding. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, we have one more to do.
And,
I'm-
go ahead.
I move to authorize Town Clerk Ann Webster to sign the declaration of official intent of the town of Middlebury in relation to potential bonding of the construction improvements to rehabilitate the former wastewater treatment facility on Lucas Shaw Lane for use as storage by the police department.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Questions on that one? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Okay.
I would just comment quickly that it was clarified for me the other day that even if FEMA does finally come through with the funding on the flood resiliency, we still have to bond
for the full
for the
amount.
full amount. And I didn't realize that, so.
Yeah. Then they reimburse us.
Yep.
Funds don't come quickly from the federal government, so. Next is amendment to grant agreement with Vermont Community Development Program that Kathleen will walk us through.
So, as I reported last month, the Lindale Mobile Home Park septic planning project got an additional allocation of $30,000 from Vermont Community Development Program to further develop the feasibility for a community septic system at the mobile home park. The additional funds will be used for preparing a topographic survey, gathering groundwater monitoring data, and conducting an environmental review for the project. ACT will provide, Addison County Community Trust will provide the $5,200 matching funds for this grant. The timeline for the grant has also been extended until June 30, 2020.
I'll move that we, the select board sign the grant agreement resolution for Amendment 1 to the Lindale Mobile Home Park Community Septic Planning Grant.
Moved and seconded. Glad it's not a failed septic system, the speed some of these things go. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? Okay. Municipal planning grant, Kathleen?
The town has been awarded $20,000 under the Department of Housing and Community Development Municipal Planning Grant Program for drafting an amendment to the downtown area zoning regulations. The update will build on the findings of the downtown master plan to encourage appropriate mixed-use development and increase residential density in the downtown area. The award includes a 10% local match of $2,000.
We have that in there, no problem.
That is in the budget.
Okay.
I move to authorize town manager Kathleen Ramsey to sign the grant agreement for the 2020 Municipal Planning Grant Program Award for drafting an amendment to downtown area zoning regulations.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? It's exciting that that's all coming together at the same time. We waited on that for so many years. Okay, approval of check warrants. Heather, I believe you've got
Yep.
it.
I've got it. So I have reviewed the warrants and found them in good order. So I'll move to approve total expenditures in the amount of $603,647.64 in accounts payable. Oh, I'm sorry. Wait a minute. The total expenditures was that amount, consisting of $500,220.66 of accounts payable and $103,426.98 for payroll for the period of December 18, 2019 through January 14, 2020.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? Okay. Kathleen?
Okay, first, in your packet, there's a draft of the upcoming 2021 Select Board meeting schedule. Most importantly, note that we're proposing the third Tuesday in March as the Select Board retreat. So please mark your calendar for that. And you'll finalize the schedule after your organizational meeting, the second Tuesday of March. In your packet, there is a letter from me to the Public Utilities Commission outlining the board's vote on the solar project for South Street. Just wanted to make you aware of that. Also, the agenda for the East Middlebury Fire District Number 1 meeting, which was last night in East Middlebury. They have a nice 2-page budget report and a very folksy meeting down there. And finally, passenger rail platform public information meeting on Wednesday, January 29th at 6:30 p.m. here at the town offices. Be looking at some preliminary designs for the rail platform on Middle Seymour Street or Maple Street.
Neat. Questions of Kathleen? Okay, hearing none, we'll go to board member concerns. Lindsay? Nothing? Farhad?
No, good.
Good? Laura?
I just want to say it was good to see Terry Arnold back in the hood, and I know she cares very much about the future of our Parks and Rec department. I know she's visiting with those folks over there, and we're just glad for what she contributed to our town and welcome her back, as we do others too. And speaking of welcoming people, I hope that our new residents will come to town meeting, and check out the many ways that they can participate in civic life here in Middlebury, of which there are many. So I welcome you. I look forward to that. And finally, I heard from a resident about ongoing concern about traffic on Route 7. We've heard it before, that's in part because of the condition of the road, but also unhappiness with the lighting, traffic light synchronization. So I just wanted to share that with the board again, that came to me. And I know some of that is out of our control because it's managed by this, is that right? Down?
Well,
There's some issues that
I would just add that Bill updated Infrastructure Committee last Thursday that the loop detectors at the high school, you know where I'm talking about, were not working. And so that light is on a timed cycle right now, although he has contracted with a vendor to come do replacements, and that could be causing some of the issue right now, is the loop detectors are not working in that intersection.
cycles regardless whether there's a car there or not.
Right, right.
I thought he was looking into, did we hear anything if
About
they
Hannaford's down by
get the,
The radar.
the radar?
Well, so the loop detector that he proposed was about $2,200. To do a radar install, and that is about $25,000. So for right now, we're gonna go with the loop detector repair, and hopefully at some point, budget to slowly transition all the intersections to the radar. But that could be some of what people are experiencing right now.
What about down by Hannaford's, because there's still something off down there
Yeah.
with the northbound light? So do we know who gets to control that?
The state controls those.
So does that need to be just reported to?
Kathleen can certainly ask Dan to give them a call again.
You mean
Okay.
northbound from Route 7 going north?
Yeah, yes.
That one is cycling when there's no one there also?
Other problem is that the light on the southbound side of Route 7 at Hannaford's turns green well before its northbound counterpart.
And the reason why, if you were,
The left turn signal.
the left turn signal is longer, yeah.
I think. I use that all the time. I've never seen delays on that.
Oh, you
light.
haven't?
No.
Then what's the complaint, you think?
I don't know. No, I haven't
Okay.
heard about. I hear a lot more about the middle road, Route 7.
I hear about that one
Yeah.
too, but
Yeah, those are problems right now.
what about flashing yellow when it's late at night, Brian, when
We talked about that and
Yeah,
there
Dan.
was, Dan talked about it to us, I don't know, I disagree with their philosophy. I think we should allow it to go to flashing yellow. There's still towns that do flashing yellow. I don't
what
think
was
we have
his-
accidents. It had to do with,
reason again?
He cited
Rutland does it.
not as effective
They
and
flash.
not as safe.
Oh,
Well, I don't remember all of it, but I think when the loops and the radars and everything are working appropriately, there's not really a need for it. The traffic flow, because there's no calling from the side roads. So,
Right.
anyway.
but not everything is on.
Oh, I don't
on
disagree. I just,
loops,
yeah,
so.
yeah,
Did you have any concerns?
yeah.
anyway, that was
So
it.
why did everybody else?
Everywhere else got it.
So Kathleen, so I found this picture on social media the other day, and I shared it at infrastructure. And I asked Kathleen to email it to Irene. This is our solution to the covered bridge notification that provides some comic relief and also notice, maybe during the bridge project. And I thought, wouldn't it be great if we made it a tiger or a panther? Anyway, it was originally kind of a joke, but then the more I thought about it, I thought, well, it might not be so bad idea, and it might not be that expensive. So anyway, I wanted to share that.
And Irene loved it.
Yes, and Irene loved it. So,
I think it's great.
Might get in on the Good Morning America show with it, something like that.
yeah. The other thing I wanted to say quickly is I attended the East Middlebury Prudential Committee meeting last night, and had mentioned to Kathleen after, although I don't know there's a lot to discuss, I thought it might be something to think about for the future is having a collaborative meeting between the Prudential Board and the Select Board, just an opportunity to talk back and forth as two groups, which I'm not sure we've ever really done. Not that I see a whole lot, but just what they're working on, what we're working on, and maybe just an idea for the
Informing.
future. Yeah.
Good idea.
And one other quick thing. I just wanted to let you know, in case you hadn't heard, where was it? Oh, on Monday, the 27th of January, from 6 to 8, there is a master facilities planning meeting at MUHS with an update on that whole process,
Thank you for remembering.
by the school board. So I think there will be more information in the Addison Independent as it gets closer, but just wanted to put it on your radar. That's something that I've kind of been following, so.
Red hot.
So, that's it for me.
Okay. Well, I'm now an empty nester again. Nick?
Has something he wants to say.
Yeah. My turn, John, or
Yep.
Brian? Well, I guess what I want to do is note the untimely passing of John Dale last week. John was a resident of Middlebury, and he was also senior architect at Bedwell. Now, if I was sitting with all of you in that room right now, I'd point out a few features of the town offices. The high ceiling, the sense of spaciousness in the meeting room, the windows that open onto Main Street with the intention that the citizens could walk by and see their government at work, the nice glass hallway that's very inviting. It also becomes a nice setting for people to come into town services, the way the offices work. The way the building sits on that circle and complements the library. John was, for any of you who have been around during the project, the town offices, John was the lead architect on that building. He was passionate about the success of the building. I think he probably worked 4 to 5 times as many hours as he actually charged on it. He was really intent that we would have success after many years of trying. And the building is kind of a tribute to John's talent, and unfortunately now it's also a memorial to John's talent. So I think it's probably reasonable to say that we as a select board appreciate what John did, extend sympathy to his wonderful wife Amy and his son David, and I'm sure if there's an afterlife out there, John's probably up there right now designing the buildings to be a little better.
So well put, Nick.
I mean, I'd like to add something to that. I attended John Dale's memorial service today, and I'm just thinking, sitting in this building, because it's a product of his architectural skill. He was a very fine architect, and he gave a gift to the town of Middlebury. I think that we should be remembering for a very long time to come. He was also a very fine man, and he died too soon.
Yeah, well said by both of you. I mean, he was a newer member to our community, but it had quickly become part of the fabric of the community, and you know, a sad loss to our community. I guess we'll end on that.
He was also pretty good at making sure that Kathleen really fully understood all the palettes of green.
Nick refers to the green selected for this room. We went through about 150 swatches of green one drizzly afternoon in January, and had quite a go-round about that. So I never look at green the same way anymore.
So, the community also lost another long-standing legend in the passing of Gail Jetty.
Yes.
Oh, I just heard about that.
So, she was, when I was at the high school, a very big part of my time there as a PE teacher and a coach, and so condolences also to her family, and you know, she certainly was a legend in the community. So sad times. So
Too many. Okay, so we do have need for an executive session for personnel matters. If somebody
Want me to do that?
take us into that.
In accordance with Vermont's open meeting law requirements, I move that the board find that premature general knowledge of the consideration of a personnel matter would clearly place the select board at substantial disadvantage because the select board risks disclosing its litigation strategy if it discusses the personnel matter in public.
Second, here we go. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed?
I further move that the board enter into executive session to discuss the personnel matter under the provisions of Title I, Section 313A1 of the Vermont statutes.
Moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. 9:05.
Not bad.
Lazy recovery.
It went a lot